Three. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Turkey Today. I'm joined by my colleague Ragıp Duran with his expertise on Kurds and his books, and Behrooz Shojai for a chat on Kurds, for a conversation, deep conversation and analysis on Kurds due to mainly recent developments in Syria and Turkey. Behrooz Shojai is a PhD researcher in linguistics at Uppsala University, specializing in Kurdish language, social linguistics, discourse analysis, and the colonial perspectives in the Middle East, with the emphasis on Kurds, of course. And today's theme centers on Behrouz's co-authored book, Kurdish Paradox on Statelessness, Öcalan's Confederalism, and the Turkification Strategy, which critically examines Abdullah Öcalan's ideological framework, Abdullah Öcalan being the jailed PKK leader in Turkey, and their implications for the Kurdish nation building and amid persistent statelessness. We will explore how these ideas intersect with broader Kurdish aspirations for identity and self-determination, especially after the recent developments in Syria. Welcome, Ragıp, and good to have you with us, Behrooz.
Thank you for having me.
Hello, Yavuz. Hello, Behrooz. Let me first thanks to Behrooz for his time to be together with us. As Yavuz said, he's the co-author of a very important book. The title is Kurdish, as he said, Kurdish Paradox of Statelessness. He wrote this book with Kamal Süleymani, who is working now at the Mexico University. So the subtitle is, as he said, I repeat, Öcalan's Confederalism and Turkification Strategies. Well, the book is a very simple one. These two authors had made a deep research on Öcalan's discourse, interviews, and books before 99 and after 99. And they have choose at least 3 or 4 main topics, beginning with relation between Turkish states and Kurds, between also the Kurdish language as a political and social instrument in nation building or even state building. Another topic is the political and administrative status of Kurds in Turkey, Syria, Iraq, and Iran. So this is a very important, I think, a book, because after reading this book, you can understand easily all the politics, all the polity, and all the declarations of Öcalan since 1 year. Behrooz, let me first ask you, because this book was published in May 25 last year. It was also translated in Turkish, published by Doz Yayınevi, Doz Publication House. But in any case, there is no, in this book, you are not speaking about all this, what is called peace process or Turkey without terrorism. But when you heard about this first meeting between Bahçeli and DEM deputies, and after reading all this Öcalan declaration, have you been surprised or even shocked when you see all these Öcalan declaration, or it is a very normal continuation of what you have written in this book?
Thank you very much, Professor Duran. No, we were not shocked. We were not surprised. We simply predicted what is going to happen. But actually, I was a little bit surprised about certain aspects of Öcalan's declaration or his call to PKK to lay down the weapon, and that was the last part of it. The last part, in one of these sentences, that all kind of demands for sovereignty for the Kurds in terms of your own nation state or federalism or even, as he put it, administrative autonomy, and even culturalist approaches or culturalist solutions. Even that he added that to also to his latest discourse, and he considered all of them as some kind of expression for extreme nationalism. That part was a little bit, it was not surprising, but not predicted, frankly speaking. It was not. But the rest of his call for laying down the arms and the whole process from when the Bahçeli came out with the Turkey without terror process till now, nothing is surprising us, because when you look at it, when you look at the political discourse, when you look at the way it is framed, the way it is shaped within Öcalan's political discourse, it is quite normal that it had to end in this way, actually, unfortunately. But because essentially Öcalan's theories, his political discourse is anti-sovereignist. When I'm saying anti-sovereignist, it doesn't mean the sovereignty of the unitary states of Iran, Turkey, and Syria. When it means sovereignty, it is only in the case of the Kurds. What he's demanding, I don't know exactly what he's demanding, and anyhow, you know, for the Kurdish demands, from a Kurdish perspective, I know very well how he puts it. It is not based on sovereignty, and we know that without collective agency based on sovereignty, you simply have no way of achieving any linguistic rights, any linguistic agency, any cultural agency, any political agency. So all of them, the Kurds are simply, and this is also important to mention, in his last perspective to PKK's 12th Congress of Dissolution, he is putting there that, you know, considering the Kurdish society as a half-dead body entering to modernity, and the Kurds being depicted as a cultural rest. It's not even a vital, vivid, living culture, but a non-functional language and a dead body or rest of a culture entering. So based on that, we can see that the whole idea of Öcalan's democratic confederalism, which we have argued that it is neither democratic nor is it confederal. Yes. So is actually accommodating to the unitary structure of Turkish state, and even beyond that, beyond Turkey, even in Iraq, Iran, and Syria, and exactly the 12 March agreement between Shara and Abdi is a continuation of this democratic confederalism, because it is not based on the sovereignty of a collective subject, but rather accommodating into a unitary state.
I see. Thank you, Behrooz. When I read the book, I understand that Öcalan have changed completely in so many items his view before 99 and after 99. How can you explain, because as you said, he's now perhaps more Turkish than Turks. He's just like a Committee of Union and Progress ideologue. How can you explain what are the reasons of this change in your mind?
You know, within the political discourse, Kurdish political discourse, many Kurds, they have these claims that Öcalan may have been as a part of a conspiracy. I don't know, you know, intertwined or entangled with the Turkish security apparatus, like MIT or something. I cannot do that. This is not my job. I simply make a discourse analysis, a critical discourse analysis. And in this book, we have also used decolonial interpretive research method. And by that, when we say that, we think that after Tanzimat, the reform of the Ottoman Empire, we believe that after that, the Kurdish elite was heavily influenced by the dominant epistemology, which is Turkish. And this has culminated later on in the thoughts of people like Abdullah Öcalan and Ziya Gökalp and Babanzadeh Ismail Haqqi, many other people. I have read their works, their what they have writings, and I think this is a typical situation for the elite of dominated people, when they simply adopt, when they internalize the dominant epistemology. And what is happening in Kurdistan is essentially, beside cultural side, beside ethnocide, beside linguicide, this is important, and I think it is a epistemicide, killing the episteme of the local. When you are not, and I have also criticized my northern brothers, and I have said, without breaking away from Turkish epistemology, even your most nationalist people, they will use the same epistemology, and they will become just a petty Öcalan. They will not come without more than that. And I think this colonialism, which we have used in the book, or rather colonialysis, which is a state of being deprived of your own episteme, your own epistemology, and defining your ontology based on the parameters of the dominant Turkish epistemology, makes you to believe that the Turkish episteme is the universal one, the normal one, while your own is the marked one. Within linguistics, maybe the official language, the language with the prestige, with the status, generally is non-marked, is considered as the default language, while the minoritized language is generally marked language. So when you see that, and always the dominant, the sovereign nation, the sovereign group of people, they are always considered as the normal, the ordinary, while the others are always marked. We talk about culture generally about when those who are marginalized. So in this sense, we see that the Kurdish intelligentsia, the Kurdish intellectual elite particularly in Baku, in northern Kurdistan, is profoundly colonized in mind. And I think Öcalan's approach, however, from the beginning, talking about some idea about Kurdish, united Kurdish, even that is not totally clear when you read his books. We have revisited his writings, and we see that he's not consistent in that matter either. Because when you read his earlier writings and his earlier interviews, there is always an element of taking the Turkish one as granted, the Turkish state as granted. It is always the source
as normal.
Yes, as normal. It is always the source of legitimacy. He is trying to seek legitimacy within the Turkish state. But bin muhatap alıyorum. I'm looking for somebody to talk to me. Talk to me. You are the normal. I'm doing my best. So that is when we make an analysis on the situation, we consider it as coloniality of being and coloniality of knowledge. That is our approach.
Yes. Behrooz, thank you very much, because that was one of the questions that I was plan to ask you about this self-colonizing peoples about the Kurdish. Thank you for the reply. I wonder which kind of reaction did you receive from universities, from your colleagues, or from political spheres about this book?
That is very intriguing question, actually. Some people may argue that this is quite polemic, this our critique may be controversial towards Öcalan, particularly when we made this literature review. We found a lot of writings praising Öcalan's work, and that is mainly because most of his writings are translated into English, and they have used the English ones, and they are not so
Accurate.
accurate, actually, and it is
even censored, as I know, even censored.
Even
some parts
censored,
are
exactly.
Some sentences do not exist in the original, or vice versa.
Exactly. And I think it may be perceived as controversial what we have written, and still you may have noticed that the Öcalan front or PKK front is quite silent about the book. I haven't heard anything about it.
Oh, I heard about that. You are accused of being MIT, Turkish Intelligence Service
Okay.
voice. And
But
you reply to
written,
that accusation, as I know.
I mean, by intellectuals, their intellectual elite. I haven't seen anything. Of course, I have
If
also.
there is a intellectual elite, if there is.
Anyhow, but I haven't seen, I mean, in a way of critique, review of the book, I haven't seen that. But we think no matter critique, how controversial it is, critical scholarship is not meant to provide comfort or reassurance, which have been the case in Turkey in general, with the PKK discourse in particular. Its task is to interrogate dominant frameworks, and that PKK discourse right now is the dominant framework in northern Kurdistan, especially when they acquire this hegemonic status and through HDP, DEM party, and all other organizations. So, but our aim is not to delegitimize the Kurdish structure or struggle, or deny the historical and ongoing injustice by the Kurdish people. Our aim is grounded in the conviction that the Kurdish self-determination is a political right, which Öcalan has also revised. And his book of Democratic Confederalism, he is criticizing Lenin and Stalin because they have interpreted the right of self-determination as the right of sovereignty, the right to have their own nation state or whatever. And all his interpretation of, you are very familiar, these so-called empty signifiers that he used from time to time, like democracy, like confederalism, like right to self-determination. All of them are typical empty signifiers. By democracy, he is meaning something else. For instance, when concerning democracy, read the social contract of KCK, Kurdistan Communities Association, whatever it is translated into English. And there is articles just for Öcalan. And this is the social contract.
With his name, with his name.
With his name.
He's the final person who will decide about the fate of all Kurds. Yeah, I know that. Yavuz, I do have two more questions, but if you have any other question before mine, please.
I have a couple of questions. Bringing the conversation into today, the current developments, I am interested in knowing your opinion about two things. The first one, based on what you have told us so far, you know, the pro-Öcalan flank lately, in the last 24 hours or a little bit more maybe, have been claiming that the current state of affairs, the agreement between Damascus and the SDF, is partly due to Öcalan's efforts as well. Those claims come, for example, from Professor Mithat Sancar, former co-chair of the DEM party. There is, on the other hand, an agreement, widely agreed viewpoint that the winner of this all is basically Ankara. Would that mean, given what, for example, what is conveyed by Professor Sancar, is also that everything develops in a way that would make also Öcalan content and happy? Is it the way that he wanted, along with Ankara? What is your opinion about this?
Before that, I have to say this. What we experienced in Rojava was de facto a sovereign entity. De facto sovereign entity. You know, it had its security policy, education policy, economic policy, diplomatic relations, whatever. A lot of things. It was minimum a kind of the normal, you know, within international law, we call it a confederation, or actually a non-recognized states formation, simply. Nation building, actually. Anyhow, but the thing is, they had their own interpretation of democratic confederalism. But on the ground, it was not that democratic confederalism that Öcalan imagined. It was beyond that. It was beyond the notion of just, you know, civil society organizations. It had to deal with various questions in the society. It had to deal with the notion of sovereignty in all terms. But and Öcalan, in his one of the protocol and the minutes of one of his meetings with some officials, DEM party officials last year, and I think it was April 21st or something like that, he explicitly says that, and he was not supposed to impose this status there. It means that he is against that status. It is not the embodiment of democratic socialism, democratic confederalism that he imagined. And also he depicts SDF as Hashti popular mobilization, like Iraq, you know, Hashti Shabi of Israel. It means that he's not so happy about what happened in Rojava. But raison d'etre of Rojava, politically, theoretically, is still Öcalan's ideas. So they have a de facto status. And this de facto status had to come to a de jure status. It has to be constitutionally, institutionally, in a way recognized or arranged. And this rearrangement from de facto to de jure came through via March 10 agreement between Abdi and Shara. And that agreement between Abdi and Shara is based on democratic confederalism. That is, or rather, as Öcalan expresses it, as democratic integration in Turkey. And that is based on that democratic integration, in which nothing is mentioned about sharing the sovereignty. Nothing is mentioned about the Kurds as a collective subject and with constitutional and institutional rights, rather as a group, you know, recognized group. And yes, what he says, the situation in Rojava, whatever my Kurdish friends say about that, is not beyond what Öcalan has imagined. is not beyond what Öcalan has demanded, actually. It is thought, yes. It is actually in parallel, quite parallel with Öcalan's thoughts. But actually, what Sharar, with Sharar's decrees, that is actually more than what Öcalan had imagined about or thought about the Kurdish rights, because Öcalan is yes.
Okay, Behrooz, we have only 5 more minutes, so I will ask
No, we have a
my
little bit
last.
more. We have a little bit more.
Okay,
So
okay. I will ask my last question, and then we'll take the floor. I forget to announce at the beginning that Kamal Süleymani and Behrooz Shojai are from Eastern Kurdistan, which means the Iranian part of Kurdish of Kurdistan. So, what will be in your mind in a short term? How Washington-Tehran relations could have any kind of effect on the Kurdish problem?
Which part of the of Kurdistan it means? If you are considered about the eastern part, if that relation ends up in open conflict and ends up in some kind of regime change, which is not going to happen like in previous cases in Iran, like, there was an opposition, Khomeini, and coming and taking over. And that will not happen. Maybe a regime will be overthrown, but there will not be alternative because there is no unified opposition. It will rather be some kind of dysfunctional state in Iran, like, failed state, because it is going to be some kind of, I predict some kind of civil war in Iran. In that case, the situation of the Kurds in Eastern Kurdistan is not good at all. This is my concern, actually, because we know what Iran is facing is not just the crisis of legitimacy of the governance. It is, the regime has lost its legitimacy, but the entire country of Iran, the state of Iran, has crisis of sovereignty. Before it was maybe Kurds, it was Kurds who challenged the sovereignty in Iran in First World War, Second World War, after revolution. But now Baluchs, Azeri Turks, Arabs, several groups, they are challenging the entire sovereignty. Maybe some will have demands within, federalism, confederalism, but groups like Azeri Turks, in my opinion, they are aiming at full sovereignty, external sovereignty, which is their own nation state. And their notion of nationalism is borrowed from Turkey, is based, in my opinion, based on blood and earth. Wherever you conquer it with blood, that is your land, simply. It's not based on, rights. And this. Of course, the rights are there. And also they have their historical narrative. They have created their narrative. In their narrative, what is considered as West Azerbaijan, where Mahabad is situated, fully Kurdish cities like Mahabad, Sardash, Piranshah, Shenu, Bokan, and this area bordering Turkey, totally Kurdish speaking, that zone, they are Kurdish. And they claim traditionally the center of Kurdish nationalism has been in this so-called West Azerbaijan. All Kurdish leaders originate from this so-called Azerbaijan, West Azerbaijan. So it is going to be a clash between, competing nationalism. When I say it is going to be some kind of war between Kurds and Azeri Turks. And in that case, and I don't think we have any chances. We don't have any states behind us. We don't have that internal mobilization. We don't have that political discourse ready to meet this problems,
Challenges.
and it will end in some kind of ethnic cleansing there.
Thank
That
you,
was about
Behrooz.
it.
Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Behrooz. Yavuz?
Well, final question, maybe, given that we have a few minutes left. It's widely believed now that administratively and militarily, what took place in Syria is a defeat for the Syrian Kurds. Um, from the Kurdish cultural perspective, will that also mean in time defeat for the gains, the cultural gains of the Syria's Kurds? What is your prediction?
Without constitutional guarantees, without institutional guarantees, I don't think there will be any chances of preserving these gains, like universities in
Right.
Rojava, in Kobani, in many places. And I don't think they are going to be able to keep their schools in Kurdish, because the status, this is important. Kurdish is recognized by a decree, not constitutionally, by a decree as a national language, not official language. That is two different things. You know, when you say official language, then you oblige the state to go in and offer any, make it mandatory in schools. But when it is national language, like in Sweden, you are familiar with it, like nationella minoriteter, national minority, like Samis.
Right.
And that is not, that's actually less than that. It is some kind of, if you want, optional. Like in Turkey, you have the situation in Turkey, optional. I don't think that right now, without any constitutional guarantees, without politically, institutionally steadfast in the society, and with that jihadist mentality, especially the Salafist mentality, which in my opinion is basically operating within Arab nationalist methodology, there will not be any chances. And also, you know, that their approach towards everything, you know, they have this khud'a, like taqiyya, khud'a, what is called, this, not dissimulation, but deception, and masdaha, you know, interest, and zarura, necessity. They can make sometimes, you know, concessions temporarily, but it doesn't mean they are bound by those concessions by a decree. And since there are no constitutional guarantees for these rights given by a decree, and I don't think they will preserve their gains, and I don't think there are any chances for safeguarding what they have achieved in Rojava.
Rather worrisome thoughts indeed. Thank you, Behrooz Shojai, for joining me and my colleague Ragip Duran. Behrooz Shojai is a researcher with Uppsala University in Sweden, and also an expert on Kurdish issue, especially on Kurdish culture issue in the region, and having co-authored also the book Kurdish Paradox of Statelessness, Öcalan's Confederalism and the Turkification Strategy, co-authored with Kamal Süleymani. And again, thank you for sharing your views with us, Behrooz, and hoping to talk to you again together with Ragip.
Thank you for
again.
having me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Behrooz. Thank you, Yavuz.